Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Yusuf Shakeel and you are watching jQuery tutorial series. In this video, we are going to learn how to handle forms using jQuery. And guys, all the code that we are going to write in this video, I'll put them in my GitHub repository. And the notes of this tutorial video will be there on my website dyclassroom.com. You will find all the links in the video description, so please check that out. And guys, if you haven't already, then please subscribe my channel by clicking that subscribe button. And don't forget to click that bell icon so that you will be notified whenever I upload a new video. Alright guys, let's get started. Alright, so I have opened the project folder in Sublime Text. And inside the project folder, I have created a new file, form.html, and I have written the following code. And inside the JS folder, I have created a new file, form.js, which is this one. And I've included this form.js file and jQuery file inside this HTML file by writing the script tag. And now we'll save this file and open it in Chrome. So we'll open the project folder and then we'll open this form.html file. And we'll also open the DevTools. So we'll go to View, Developer, and we'll select the DevTools. And we'll switch to this console tab. And since this is empty, that means we don't have any error. Alright. Now let us go ahead and create a form inside the body, and let us give this form an ID sample-form. And we'll remove this action attribute for now. And in this video, we are going to handle input fields, checkboxes, text area, select options, and the two most commonly used buttons inside a form, that is the submit button and the reset button. So let us go ahead and create an input field of type text, and let us go ahead and give this input field an ID sample-input-text. And let us also give this a placeholder. Let's say enter your name. And now if we go back to Chrome and reload, we get an input field and the placeholder is enter your name. Now let us go back to our HTML file and create another input field of type email. So we'll change this type to email and we'll change the ID to sample-input-email and placeholder to enter your email. And let us also create an input field for the password. So PASSWRD, and the ID will be sample-input-password, and enter your password. Alright, so let us go ahead and save this file and go back to Chrome and reload. So now we have three input fields: enter your name, enter your email, and enter your password. Alright, now let us go ahead and style this input fields, because right now it is not looking very nice. So inside the head, let us go ahead and create a style tag. And we'll be using this style rules. So we are targeting input field of type text, email, and password, and we are setting the margin to 20 pixels, display to block, padding to 5 pixels, and font size to 16 pixels. So now if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload, now we get the following output. Now let's go ahead and create a select option. So we'll create a select element and we'll give it an ID sample-select, and name you can set it to sample-select. And inside this, let us go ahead and create some options. So option, first value is dash, select. Let's create another option. Let's say Apple. Another option, let's say mango, and one more option, let's say orange. So now if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload, we get a select option. And now let's go ahead and apply some style to this select element. So inside this style, we'll write the following style rules. We are setting the margin to 20 pixels and we are setting the display property to block. So if we now save this file, go back to Chrome and reload, we can see now this select element gets a 20 pixel margin and it is now a block element. And now let us go ahead and create a text area. And let us give this text area an ID sample dash text area. And we can set the name to, let's say, sample dash text area. And we can bring this to the next line. Column, well, let's remove the column attribute. And let's set the rows to, let's say 5. And let us also give a placeholder attribute. And let's say the text is enter some short description. So now if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload, we get a text area. And let us go ahead and style this. So inside the style, let us target the text area and let us set the margin to 20 pixels, display to block, let's say padding, let's say 5 pixels, font size to, let's say 16 pixels. So now if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload, and let's say we want to change the width, let's say 200 pixels. So we can write width 200 pixels. So if we save, go back to Chrome and reload, we get a 200 pixel text area. And let's say if we want to prevent the user from resizing this text area, so for that we'll set the resize to none. So if we save, go back to Chrome and reload, we don't have that resize. Now let's go ahead and create some checkboxes, and using checkboxes will allow the user to select multiple options. So let's say we have a breakline and input field type will be checkbox. Name will be, let's say, sample dash checkbox. Value, let's say Ubuntu. Let's say we have another checkbox. Let's say Windows. And let's say we have one more checkbox, Mac OS. So now if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload. So we get the 3 checkboxes and we can select one or many. So we can select all the 3 or we can select any one or any 2. And let's add some paragraph. So let's say we have a paragraph and it is asking us to select your favorite OS. And let's say we have a paragraph before this select option. Let's say select any one fruit. And let's say at the top we have, let's say, h3 form example. So now if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload, we get the header form example. Then we have select any one fruit. So the user can select any one of the following option. Then we have select your favorite OS. So the user can select one or many. And let's say we have one more checkbox for others. So we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload. Now we have 4 checkboxes. All right, now let us go ahead and create radio buttons. So we'll create a breakline. Now let's say we have another input field, and this time the type is radio. Name, let's say sample-radio. Value, let's say desktop. Let's say we have another radio button. This is laptop. And let's say one more, smartphone. And let's say we have a paragraph. Select any one device. So if we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload, we get the radio buttons. And in this case, we can select only one of the 3 options. So we can select either desktop or laptop or smartphone. So anyone. And now let us go ahead and create one final checkbox. And this will be a mandatory checkbox. So it is like, let's say, check this box if you accept our terms and conditions, that kind of thing. So for that, we'll create an input field of type checkbox. And we can give it a name, let's say required checkbox. Let's say we give it an ID. Let's say required checkbox. And let's say we can add the required attribute. And let's say the value is I agree. And let's say the text is I agree to the terms and conditions. So now if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload, we get the I agree to the terms and conditions checkbox. And now let us go ahead and create the 2 buttons, the submit button and the reset button. So after this, we can create an input field of type submit. Value will be, let's say, submit. And we can create another button of type reset and value reset. So if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload, we get the 2 buttons. And now let's go ahead and style this radio buttons and checkboxes. So inside this style, we'll add some more style rules. So we'll first target the input field of type radio and input field of type checkbox. And let's say, let's give it a margin of 20 pixels or let's say 10 pixels. So we'll write margin 10 pixels. So now if we save this file, go back and reload, Yes, now it looks nice. And let us change this submit and reset button. So we'll add another style rule, and this time we'll target the input field of type submit and input field of type reset, and let's say we want to give it a, let's say, a margin of 15 pixels. So margin 15 pixels, let's say padding, let's say 5 pixels, and let's say font size 16 pixels. So if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload. All right, this looks nice. So this is our form, and we'll be handling the submit and reset event for this form using jQuery. Now to handle the submit event for this form having ID sample-form, we have to write, this is handling the submit event. So we'll write dollar round brackets hash sample-form, then we'll call the on method, and we are handling the submit event, and we'll have a function, and inside this function we'll write some code that will execute when this form is submitted. And inside this function I will return false. So this will prevent the page from reloading when we click that submit button. And inside this function, I will also create a variable data, which will be an object. And whatever value that we submit, we will add that value to this data object. And we can console.log the data. And now if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload. And now if we submit this form, we'll get this notice saying, please tick this box if you want to proceed. And since this is a mandatory field, so we have to place a tick mark. And now if we submit, we can see that the form got submitted, but the page was not reloaded because we are returning false on the submit event. And we also get this empty object, which is coming from line number 8, which is this one. And now we'll go ahead and write the code to collect the data that was submitted during form submission, and we'll add that to this data object. All right, we'll first start by targeting this input field of type text for the name. And this input field has an ID sample-input-text. So for that, if we want to get the value of that input field, we have to first target that input field, and we are targeting it by ID. So we write dollar round brackets and within double quotes hash, then the ID. And to get the value, we call the value method, and we'll save the value of the input field in this data object. So let's say data.name and save. Now if we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload. And now if we write some name, let's say John Doe, and tick mark. And now if we submit, we get name John Doe. Similarly, we can handle this email field. So for that, we have to first target it by ID, which is sample-input-email. So let's say we are attaching another property, email, and we are targeting that input field, and we want the value, so we call the value method. And now if we save the file, go back to Chrome and reload the page. So now we can set the name, let's say John Doe, email, let's say example@example.com, tick mark, and now if we submit, we get the name and the email. Similarly, we can handle the password. So let us go ahead and copy paste. Set this to password, and the ID for this input field is sample-input-password. So we'll change this to password. And now if we save the file, go back to Chrome, reload. And now if we write John Doe example@example.com, password, let's say root 123, tick mark, and submit. So we get the name, email, and password. Click reset, and all the data is removed. Now let's target this select element. So let us go ahead and copy, paste. This will be fruit. And the ID for the select element is sample-select. So we'll target that element by ID. And we want to get the value. So we are calling the value method. So now if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload. Now we can set the fields and change the select to Apple, tick mark, and submit. So we get the name, email, password, and fruit apple. All right, now let's go ahead and target the value of this text area. So we'll copy this, and let's say this is for description, and the ID for the text area is sample-text area. So we'll copy that and we'll paste it here. So we are targeting the text area by ID, and we want the value of that text area. So we are calling the value method. So now if we save this file, go back to Chrome, reload the page, and now if we fill the form, example password, let's say root 123, let's say Apple, some text, ... tick mark, and let's submit. So now we get the name, email, password, fruit is apple, and description, some text ... Let's reset. All right, now let's go ahead and handle this OS checkboxes. So inside our JS file, let's say for the data, we have an OS property, and this will be an array because the user can select 0 or more number of OS. And to target this checkboxes having name sample-checkbox, we'll write $ round brackets, and inside this we are targeting the input field, and name is sample-checkbox, and we want to check whether this is checked, and if it is checked, then we'll loop through all the checked checkboxes, and inside this function we will push the value of the checkboxes that are ticked. So by writing this, we are selecting the input fields having name sample-checkbox, and we are selecting only those checkbox that are checked, and we are calling the each method, and inside this we are collecting the value of the checkboxes that are ticked, and we are pushing those values inside this OS, which is an array. So if we save this file, go back to Chrome, reload the page, and let us fill the form. Select some apple, sample text, and if we don't select anything and we tick mark and we submit, we get an empty array for the OS. But if we select, let's say, Ubuntu, and we submit again, in the OS we get Ubuntu. And let's say if we select Mac, Windows, and if we submit again, this time we get in the OS, Windows, Mac OS. Similarly, we can select all the 4 options and we can submit the form again. And this time for the OS array, we get the 4 values: Ubuntu, Windows, Mac OS, and others. Alright, now let's go ahead and handle the radio buttons. So I'll reset the form, and inside our JS file, we'll add another property called device. And this time, since it's a radio button, so out of 3 radio buttons, we can only select 1. And the name for this radio button is sample-radio. So we'll target those radio buttons by writing $ round brackets within double quotes, input field, and name of the input field is sample-radio, and we want to check whether they are checked, and then we want to get the value. So now if we save this file, go back to Chrome and reload, and now let's go ahead and fill up the form. Let's say this time mango. More text. Let's say we want to use Mac, and tick mark. And now if we submit without selecting any radio button, we can see the device is undefined. But if we select desktop and submit, we can see the device is desktop. Similarly, we can select, let's say, laptop, and click submit, and we get the device as laptop. And finally, we'll check whether this mandatory checkbox is ticked by the user or not. So let us reset this form. So if you want to check whether this checkbox is ticked by the user, we have to use a if block. So we'll first target this input field using the ID required -checkbox. So we can add a property to this data object saying I agree equal to no. And then we can have this if block, and we are targeting that input field. And then we'll call the is method, and we want to check whether it is checked. If this is true, then we can set data.I agree to yes. So now if we save this file, go back to Chrome, reload the page, and let us go ahead and fill up the form. Root 1, 2, 3. Let's say this time orange. Hello world. OS, let's say Mac, Ubuntu, Windows. Let's say laptop. And yes, I agree. And if I click submit, we can see I agree is set to yes. But if I don't tick this and click submit, it is going to say please tick this box if you want to proceed. This is because we have that required attribute. So if we remove this required attribute, save the file, go back to Chrome and reload the page. And if we fill up the form, orange, hello world, and this time if we don't tick this checkbox and click submit, we get I agree, no. And if we tick this and submit again, we get I agree, yes. Alright guys, this brings us to the end of this tutorial. I will post the tutorial notes on my website dyclassroom.com, and all the code that we are writing in this tutorial series, I'll put them in my GitHub repository. You will find all the important links in the YouTube video description, so please check that out. And guys, if you haven't already, then please subscribe my channel by clicking that subscribe button. And don't forget to click that bell icon so that you will be notified whenever I upload a new video. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video. And like always, stay happy and keep smiling. Bye.